Ella let me know she wasn't coming, but I don't know about the others. I figured we could at least meet. There were some emails floating around. Hopefully we've gathered enough information in one place that we can share that right now. I guess floundering a little bit because I anticipated Christian leading this effort today. But she sent an email with some documents on the share drive that she thought would be useful for folks to look at. I don't think the distribution was to everybody.
Oh, no?
On the Google Drive?
I tried to send it, you have to, I mean, you might need a Google address to actually get in, but I thought I sent it to everyone, like, I have a complete streets, like mailing, you know.
Yeah, but she cited some specific ones in an email today or yesterday.
Yeah, there's a separate email conversation between like just 3 or 4 of us.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure. Not that I was trying to hide anything.
Yeah.
There's
Wait, can you clarify what you're saying? Are you saying that not everyone has access to the shared drive, or are you?
No, she cited a specific set of documents that she thought would be useful as a foundation for discussion.
I thought that was just the content of the shared drive, the shared folder.
It was a specific folder that had to do with other sidewalk programs.
So the one for outside Kingston,
Outside
is that
Kingston,
top
I
left
think
one?
I think that's the one.
I thought I accessed it.
So, yeah, if you are.
Yeah.
This is the one I looked at.
Yeah, this is what's, so if this is not what it looks like for you, then maybe the sharing is off. There's still a learning curve about all of the new technology.
I think that's pretty much the same thing I saw, if
And-
not exactly.
Brian, I just added your 2 documents.
So those documents, I think there's about 8 or 10 of them now, were things that Christian thought could be, useful to inform everybody of possibilities. And maybe we can steal parts or all of one of those for our effort. And part of that discussion, Brian suggested that our product could be a white paper, relatively short. It doesn't have to be a novel. I think our overarching goal here is to come up with a recommendation that the city can act upon, and whether that's through the common council or the mayor to move it forward.
Right.
And I think they're still kind of open to have something in place for the coming fiscal year, based on what Steve said to us 3 months ago, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I lost track.
How does that line up with the election, with you before at?
It wouldn't be implemented until after, and we may need a referendum,
Right.
depending
Well,
on where we go with it.
as my thinking was, I don't know if you want to be during any of this manual stuff, you probably want to be after, right? Yeah, so.
I think at the pace that we're likely to work at, it's gonna take us till at least the summer, I would say, to compile something, maybe not.
Yeah.
Then
The process of the referendum takes time too.
Yeah, well, that needs to be
Like
set
with
forth a year in advance of the
Yeah.
election.
Oh,
So
so it'd be
there won't be
offset.
any referendum. Even if that were the mayor's preference, which it doesn't sound like it is.
Yeah, that would be great.
Um,
I'm not going to.
I don't know, somewhere along the line, I got the impression that they were, maybe gonna try to get it for this year.
Well, it's too late, from what I understand.
Yeah.
In terms of New York State law, general municipal,
Ah,
a referendum needs to be filed well in advance of.
It's like the deadline's like now or very soon.
Yeah.
The community preservation plan was also requiring a referendum, and that officially is now not happening this year. I think the deadline was right around now, or it passed it.
Okay,
Yeah.
We're coming into primary season, there's
Yeah.
machinations through the Board of Elections, I guess.
yeah.
I mean, And I think a recommendation at any time will be welcomed. So this is a project, you know, we've been talking about sidewalks my whole life.
Right,
Yeah.
We're not gonna solve it by June,
right.
you know.
Oh, yeah,
So-
like 8 years ago or so, we
Yeah.
started the sidewalk.
Yeah, but I think we're in a good position here. And if I may, John, I have not read most of these articles, but I put a couple of them there. And I did look at the Seattle one, which Kristen recommended, which does provide a good overview. So I think we should try to work toward a white paper or even just a matrix. I always like to use that as a good planning tool that sort of is like an annotated bibliography that summarizes these papers. So I think our homework is to start to review these documents and familiarize yourselves with them. It's my opinion that any solution that will take shape, if it's going to be a workable solution, it has to be multifaceted. I think there needs to be a financial assistance component for low-income households. So somehow the city needs to put forth capital to provide that capital assistance. And there's examples like South Bend as a program that is just a flyer that I've found. There's probably more information on it. I added the paper from Shoup, who's a professor of urban planning in California. He's written quite a few books that sit on planners' shelves, putting cities back on their path or something like that, back on their feet. So this talks about point of sale mechanisms. So when a homeowner sells their house, they would be required to redo their sidewalk. Or there's other mechanisms that could allow them to do it sooner. And it involves liens on the property. All this stuff is very complicated. And it really takes some thought and some time to absorb the various methods. But I really think that there's no one size fits all. A great program in Ithaca, which is one we hoped to emulate here in Kingston, is a costly program. It's a new fee for
Is it
residents. It's a costly
Oh,
program because it involves a tax, a fee.
Right. Costly in a lot of ways.
And then it's politically costly potentially.
Yeah.
And you're hiring staff to administer the program. In any case, you may need, there's gonna be some investment of human capital here as well to administer any of this stuff. It's like I said, it's complicated. I don't even know how like liens work. There's a lot of paperwork involved in it, just from the administrative side. And then there's the engineering side, then there's the construction side. So, I mean, that's what we need to work towards something, which is a recommendation, which has to come in the form of a paper of some sort, I think. So I don't want to presume anything, but that's my initial thought so far, that we might end up recommending several approaches to solving the problem. So there's
I think the
good documents here.
thing that was kind of active was the sidewalk district model with fixed fee per property. And then it actually had sidewalks, a fee per linear foot. And somewhere on that shared drive, there was a spreadsheet, I believe, that talked about the fees and potential costs over time.
Yeah, so that's the one thing was I would love to get that updated. That would like be pretty easy to do, right? Relatively speaking, finding the costs that have changed.
I think all you would have to do is type in your linear feet, the average construction cost of new sidewalk concrete per linear foot, and into the spreadsheet, because all the land data, the lot length has not changed. So it might, emphasize might, and I have some familiarity with that spreadsheet. I looked at it a few times. You might just need to update one cell. And that number is readily available.
Okay.
Based on John Schulteis's office and work. They're doing sidewalks every year, so they do have a good sense of the costs for
Yeah,
materials.
hopefully all the formulas are in there, not just numbers.
Right.
I don't know what made its way to the shared drive.
These look like working files, and in fact, that's part of I think the difficulty of it, you know, if you saw when I had opened that folder, there's like 6 here. And I don't know which, we sort of need Kristen to be like, oh, this was the last one that it
Yeah.
picked up.
It's like my Excel files, I was so messy. Work in progress, don't look at this one, look at this.
Right, new.
Yeah.
But I think those, you know, Kristen and I went through on a Zoom call and she had me pull over a whole bunch of files. So I think they're here. There's a lot here to go through. So I'm not sure which one to pull up for
Yeah,
you.
that was one of the things she mentioned that she would like to update, try to get the projected costs and revenues figured out.
And I just did a revenue projection for a long-range planning product. And I have that cost for linear feet, I don't recall what it is. So, I mean, costs have gone up significantly, they're not cheap, but, in terms of the number, we can get at least a very quick update, and you can ask John for an even more, a bigger update, particularly after, we're doing Henry Street right now.
Well, not to throw a wrench in it, I think that you do a rough number pretty easily. That's probably what you're talking about. Don't forget Bluestone.
Right.
You know, that's gonna, so that you're gonna have to have like your own spreadsheet for calculating the cost of Bluestone.
Yeah,
Right. And I forget how the spreadsheet works, if it does not delineate one versus the other, but
another one I looked at.
we do now have in our bike ped master plan, an inventory of Bluestone,
We do.
which has been, factored into the GIS. So we can calculate the linear feet of the existing Bluestone.
It's by
That
block,
was
it's
in
by
one of
block
those,
segment.
Right.
So that doesn't take into consideration pieces that like aren't actually usable, that might be there now.
If I recall, the way we calculated it was percentage of that segment was Bluestone. So I believe, so pretend it's on Broadway here, the person who was evaluating it said, is there 25%, 50%, or 75% of Bluestone in this segment? I believe that that's the data we have.
Okay.
Many segments, if you all walk anywhere in Kingston, is like concrete, asphalt, Bluestone, it's a total mess. So it's not gonna be precise, but it'll be enough to make an estimate.
Yeah.
And it's, all these programs, again, I find them to be very complicated. But, speaking as a planner, we don't need to solve all the problems through this process. We need to provide a host of options, perhaps recommendations, what we would prefer. Each approach has pros and cons. The approach is when you do the point of sale approach. I think that's pretty fair, but it would take forever. You think.
Because you have to build up the resources and there aren't enough sales necessarily, right?
Exactly, it's not gonna do a turnover in a quick.
You're not gonna be able to do the plan in 3 miles a year
Right,
forever, yeah.
where, however, if you had some sort of financial assistance program working in conjunction with that. So it's, I think, a multifaceted approach, you might need several programs, and I worked on the fee approach. I love the approach in Ithaca. If you visited there, their sidewalks are immaculate. It's really inspiring. And I would love to see that. I hate to sound cynical. I just don't know how feasible it's going to be in the city of Kingston, considering everyone is taxed to death.
I get the impression earlier in this process that the goal was to take that responsibility away from the homeowner and put it on the city.
Right.
And even that fee per property plus the fee per foot, that would generate a tiny fraction of the money needed to do
Right,
this.
it's a 30-year program.
Yeah, and even the 30-year program, based on those numbers, you still needed other money, a lot of other money, just on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Forget about the curbs and all the other things that would go along with a complete street rehab.
So Brian, to go back with your matrix, I'm thinking I think you all saw the bike ped master plan. There's that one section where we have a couple of different options and you show the stakeholders and their, positive, it's almost like a pros and cons for each thing. You might wanna do that, so like for a sidewalk district or for a point of sale thing, different stakeholders are gonna feel differently about it. So that might be part of that matrix, it's sort of like, because there, I think it's safe to say, nothing is gonna be perfect. So you're gonna wanna evaluate and let all the stakeholders feel heard in that evaluation.
And I mean, I'm open to ideas on how this process moves forward, Emily from the city, because again, I think we just need to make recommendations at this point in time and let city officials decide what they want to do. We don't need to solve all the problems in great detail. Whereas when we were developing the fee structure, I mean, Kristen Wilson at the time was city staff in a different position than Emily is in. And I think she was tasked with the job of figuring this out. So our task doesn't, I don't think, have to be to that level of detail at this point in time. We just need to evaluate the approaches and make some recommendations. And then we can put forth to the city. It's up to city staff to figure out how it's going to be.
Or other decision makers, I mean, I'm thinking of the common council, you know, quite frankly, I think they should be part of the decision making process.
Yeah.
And the timing of it, is it political?
Yeah, we're gonna have some new members too, one way or the other, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
So should we start making like a Google Doc that we can all kind of, ideas in?
So I think you all have,
First step is.
you know, if you have access to this Google Drive, well, I'm not sure anymore. You can create documents in it and, you know, work collaboratively, and that's the wonderful thing about, you know, Google Documents Drive. One suggestion of what you could do, since this is so many documents and it like, you know, like I look at this, I'm like, I can't read all these. What you could split them up. So each person takes a couple of the documents and then the next meeting you come together and sort of share, oh, in this one, I would call this a point of sale, and you can start to build that, you know, reflection instead of all of you,
Right.
you know, at least then, you know, if each person reads two of them, you'd be like, you know what, honestly, this one is worth everyone's time.
Yeah, we can even do the matrix, make a sheet, and everybody takes two and put like a summary.
Yeah.
entry or something.
Yeah, and like the best takeaways from each.
And
Yeah.
or set up a series of questions that you want each evaluator to answer. Okay, what category of program do you call this? What is the funding mechanism? You know, whatever those categories are, and then as each person goes through and evaluates, and you're all answering the same 5 questions or something.
Yeah, I think we need to figure out the template before we get into the documents, really.
Yeah, but I think Emily just nailed most of it. It's talking about the approach. And brief description therein. And pros, cons. Maybe a few other columns. And boom,
Link to the document.
yeah.
If you go to a website to find out more, link to the city's website. That's always good to have in one
Yeah.
place.
But the bike path master plan, that matrix at the back, it is a good format and framework for us to start to
I
follow.
wonder how granular we need to get with these.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to
No.
get very granular at all, because some of these are 100 or more page documents. And the shoot doc paper it's an academic paper, it is highly detailed. I found it to be a little confusing at times, because I don't know how liens work necessarily.
If you find it.
And you know, some of this is wonky stuff, and it's something that a public administrator it's right up their alley.
Yeah, well,
That flow chart really I know it looks like, whoa, that's a good flow
That's
chart.
a good one, yeah.
Yeah, so.
That's funny.
No, for the point of sale, is that?
Yeah, and there's 2 elements to the point of sale. There's at the time of sale, and then there's a description further down on, the owner can request the city to do the work immediately. And then the city essentially provides the homeowner with a loan. And that is a loan is in effect a lien on the property, and that gathers interest. So they can pay as they're comfortable over a period of time. If they don't complete the loan before they sell the house, when they sell the house, they pay off the loan. If they want to pay off the loan sooner, they can pay off the loan sooner. It
One of
doesn't,
the city documents has that laid out in layman terms, without getting into the weeds the way this academic paper does. I wish I could remember which one it was off the top of my head. But I thought,
you mean one of these documents?
one of these
Oh, great.
documents.
Good, because I mean, again, it's academic, and it doesn't necessarily cite specific examples where it's implemented.
Yeah.
Which is important and telling,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, one of them. I can't remember which one.
Could an option be like, we go and do the fee over 30 years, but then if the property is sold, the person who buys it can have an option of keep paying for the 30 year, or whatever is rest, or can we do the point of sale there? Like,
Yeah,
something like,
That one
would
that
that
was,
overcomplicate or?
that one city document, they had a 10-year time frame, and, you know, they're basically giving a loan at interest, and the property owner had the option of paying it all off or paying it in installments over time with interest on it. Or they could just pay for the whole thing up front.
right.
You know, just, you know, write a check and be done with it. And it seemed to me that they also gave me the option of doing the work themselves. You know,
Right.
hire somebody to
Right.
do it,
Up to
city
city staff.
oversight.
Yeah.
And the other option was to have the city do it using their contractors, which, you know, they would have a formula basically come in, this is the way we build a walk, presumably at a, you know, a city rate versus a commercial
Right.
rate.
Right, and sometimes they have pre-approved vendors.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the concern, I think, would be that it's just not gonna be up to C standards, or it just doesn't fit in, you know, each plot of, it's just different, you know?
Well, we've got
You
standards.
need and you need a permit to do the work
Right.
right now, today.
Yeah,
So, I mean, yeah, if there's gonna be a scofflaw out there, it's just like we talk about it with traffic safety all the time. Yeah, people are gonna break the law, no matter how good the law is.
yeah, if you go and look at the marked up, document on the changes in the sidewalk code, you'll see that, you know, a lot of new stuff was put in about, you know, specs, concrete versus bluestone, what the bedding material has to be for the bluestone, you know, whether it's, there's some kind of graded mix of compactable versus a concrete base, you know, all of those specs are there.
Tree fence too, and permeable pavements near tree
Yeah.
fence, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Is
Then they
detailed.
talk about the widths and how big the paving units have to be, you know, it's bluestone versus concrete, blah, blah, blah.
Now, the other thing to keep in mind though, I mean, even with a great program, point of sale, let's say, for example, people still may not choose to replace their sidewalks unless compelled to through, you need an inspection program to accompany it too. So that right now, today, if the sidewalk does not comply with basic ADA standards, you're gonna get a ticket,
Right.
whatever it's called, a citation. And
Is there an active inspector that does just this, or is it just sort of like general city?
so, I mean, the examples vary. Town by town. In the city of Kingston, there is not an active individual, although I believe it could very easily be the duty under the code enforcement and building code enforcement.
Yeah, so that's what you're wondering, like, how many positions are gonna have to be created
Right.
in this
Right.
world?
And because it's my understanding today, and I'm basing this on public comment I heard at a common council meeting from the code inspector, that they are at capacity. They were looking for, this was like a year ago, they were about to hire a second individual to help with the backlog of work. So it would have to, I'm guessing, for it to be effective, it would have to be a new position. Again, it's a cost.
If I recall right, wasn't that during COVID, all of the new construction, that's part of that, that staff capacity, it skyrocketed. So they were
Right.
very behind the
And the
backlog.
building department had the same problem. Inspector.
I don't know if this is true what you're asking. My understanding is that as of right now, you can put in a complaint about a sidewalk being fixed. And DPW sort of informally will go check on the situation. Or like the overgrown tree branches.
Yeah,
There are times when I understand that there's city staff that will just go and like clip it, sort of, to kind of take care of the situation. So there's, but it doesn't feel formalized.
right.
So there's, you know, the city is trying to do some enforcement, but it's not consistent.
And you look at the vegetation issues. When they do pursue it, they go out and look at it, they take photos, they document it, they notify the property owner. They go back and see if it was fixed. I mean, there's a pretty involved process. Nothing, you know, in particular that we're talking about, but I had some experience with that with properties in my neighborhood, because of proximity to the school, sightline issues.
And let me be clear, when something is submitted on 311, it is consistently followed up on. I'm not trying to imply that. I just mean like someone has to submit it in order for it to be considered.
Right,
There's no consistency in going out and there's no proactive.
right,
Let me clarify that.
right, but
Strictly averages.
but
There's
that's-
nobody out looking for it.
yeah, well, thinking about the future, if there is a sidewalk guy.
Right.
That might be more proactive, if that is their sort of one area of focus, I suppose. Or they might just be really busy doing this 3 miles a year, and that might be all they can do.
I think when you add it all up, there would be plenty of work for the individual to do. In the city of Ithaca, that individual is an engineer. Because you have to have sort of that civil engineering knowledge and expertise. You don't necessarily have to. Department of Public Works chief is not an engineer. He certainly understands civil engineering, but one other thought I had was we originally wrote a paper that included the proposal. Is that on the I call it the S drive, that's the shared drive. Could we put that in there as well? Because I think that would be a good first step, is to review the proposal we
Yeah.
originally made. It was a paper that had the Excel sheet.
So where did it go?
We approved it, and then it just gets submitted to the common council, right, and to the mayor.
You're talking about what you
When
could
they
do?
did it before?
The original sidewalk district proposal.
Well, it looks like we got, you know, the sidewalk district proposal draft folder. Is one of these one of them?
Council.
Do you know?
It looks like one of those ones at the bottom looks kind of finished, doesn't it?
Well, these were like FAQs, but maybe booklets? So again, I think Kristen knows these folders. I think she was the keeper of them. So she might be able to point it out much quicker.
Sure.
Is that your question, or is your question about?
Well, no, I think a starting point is to review whatever the final proposal that the Complete Streets Advisory Committee came up with, since we have new members. I don't even remember it, and I helped to draft it. Let's find that, let's get that, our attention on that. That's a great starting point, because I think what we're really thinking about is an update to that document. Because we don't want to abandon the
Yeah.
fee district.
If you guys, if you have some starting point, there's no reason to start from scratch.
And the mayor wanted just a few other options to consider, so you can do that. We got really good research. I've done a few Google searches, and I didn't like what I was coming up with. I saw the compendium that Kristen was compiled. It's very good. There's stuff that I hadn't seen. So there's good ideas out there.
An intern from New Paltz that did a lot of. Ada.
She worked on the New Paltz plan, or was?
No, she was working on the Kingston sidewalk project. And she went around and looked at all the sidewalks. And then who went out and did the, is it geocode or something? Did somebody go out?
There was some, yeah, I think, yeah,
I can't remember.
there's a GIS
GIS.
application that is compatible with cell phones. I think city staff
Yeah, I think somebody did that.
We set up the architecture. I say we, it was David Stoss, he's the GIS professional in my office. And handed that over to the city. And the city was able to, through volunteers and city staff, get out there and do the rating and ranking of the condition of sidewalk segments. And that is
The whole
included.
city or just like
The
in
whole
a?
city.
Also,
That's included in the bike ped master plan, those maps.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can show you the data.
And there's there's a publicly accessible dashboard.
Here, I'll-
This is the county's G.
Right, well, I guess, yeah, I've seen the grading where it's like, is it A to E or something? Is that the
I think it's 1 through 5.
1 through 5?
And that's a New York State DOT spec that they use, so we decided let's use what
Okay.
the DOT uses to make it consistent.
If you are a map or a municipal nerd, this is your jam. I love it. So here's all of our curb ramps and sidewalks. And we've gone along and you can click on a segment. Don't fail me now. And I believe that you can see the rating.
Okay.
So the core segments,
Colors.
yeah, that segment that Emily just clicked on, that's a very long segment, and in
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
within that
that's where we're
segment,
at, is that what it is?
that it will, yeah,
And it's just, so that means
Yeah.
there's no sidewalk or it's just really bad?
poor condition. There is a sidewalk there, I know, because I've walked it, but, I mean, there are variable conditions within that segment.
Right.
So there might be a really good section, but
Overall.
it's the overall.
And also to clarify, it's ADA rating. So to be fully accessible, the requirements are very high. A quarter of an inch in difference in height, for example. So we have very few fully accessible sidewalk segments.
Wait, so what's the
I think, am I
difference
saying that right?
between those greens? The greens
Yeah.
are very similar.
I agree. I haven't looked at this in a while.
So, yeah, it's a 1 through 5 rating.
Okay.
No, 1 through 4. And there were criteria for each one, I don't remember, there's paper.
It's
Yeah.
funny that my street's fully accessible. I know for a fact there's.
Yeah, I don't think that that's coming through.
Or
Yeah,
maybe it's more accessible, but either way.
I agree. I believe that I thought that the only fully accessible was like Broadway. Was like here, but, so I'm not sure how it's coming up right now. I haven't actually looked at this in a while.
Well, how old is this? When was it done?
No, it's not that old, 2 to 3 years ago.
Okay, so it's not like.
Not much has changed.
And
And,
hopefully it's up.
Fully accessible, thanks for that Broadway segment.
you know, and there's some subjective calls made by the staff person who went out there.
I think we're in better shape now because we did several of these big projects.
Right, that's what I'm saying, Franklin Street or whatever, I mean,
Yeah.
That's
whatever it is on there should be nice and, green now.
Yeah, Franklin wouldn't be on here. That's
There's
No.
posts.
more recent
Yeah.
than the inventory.
Broadway wasn't done yet.
Right. Looked like Broadway may have been ungraded, actually.
Yeah,
So, but it's set up so it can be updated relatively
Right.
easily, just with a smartphone.
Yes.
How in Glendale we do work with city improvements like Henry Street, right? Like, I think they're gonna redo the sidewalk. So let's say we go with the fees. I guess those people still need to pay their fees and then part of that might be used to cover for other sidewalk.
Yeah, I'd have to reread the proposal again and look at how the Ithaca model worked, but yeah, I mean, that's an issue. Because the thought being that the city would still need to go after state and federal grants to do large segments. But yes, because the property owner would still pay the fee because the idea is.
It's
that
helping the whole city.
The whole city.
Yeah, it's not just your.
Yeah, you don't pay just for your street. And even on my street, the 2 properties that I've lived in Kingston, they don't have sidewalks. They don't need sidewalks because they're low volume streets. But I would still be assessed a fee. I think it's a smaller fee, the way we had it proposed, but you still pay a minimum fee.
Yeah, I think our talking point was, it was like $75 or something like that. And then, like $1 let's say $1.90 per linear foot of sidewalk. And if you're on a corner, it's like they took the total and divided it by 2. Whatever formula worked out for
Yeah.
these things. Yeah, the single sidewalk district notion was because whether you had a sidewalk in front of your house or not, you still benefited from sidewalks in Kingston.
Right.
Right.
Originally,
Not sure everyone will agree with that.
Yeah.
That's the,
But it's
hopefully
still,
get that point across. Thinking ahead.
get
to
rid of
where
the
we
cars,
have to-
everybody will use them. Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned it here, but, you go back even to the 50s. And a lot of people in Kingston didn't have cars. My grandfather had a contracting business. And he built quite a few of the buildings around here. Ed Ford's book on the buildings had my grandfather's business in it as the contractor. And he used to drive around in the morning with his truck and pick up his workers. And then at the end of the day, he would bring them back home, because they didn't have cars.
They used to have trolleys, right?
Yeah.
beautiful trolleys.
Yeah. Trolleys
Lots
and
of
buses.
buses previously.
I mean, it's a major proportion of a household budget,
Yeah.
car ownership and maintenance.
Well, I'm always surprised to see the numbers when they say, the number, percentage of households in Kingston that don't even have cars. Do you think you need one to?
Yeah,
17.
I don't think it's as high as 7, it might be, it's been a while since I've looked at it. It's certainly high, because I think I confuse the numbers because they're citywide, but then you can also drill down into neighborhoods too. There's a margin of error because it's all sample-based census data. But yeah, it's significant. And there's other social equity issues involved too, because you want to make communities walkable, bikeable. But automobile ownership is also a status symbol. So it's a really, there are a lot of papers on this.
One thing that I've noticed is, 5-10 years ago, the households with no automobiles or motor vehicles, they call them, since nobody's got trucks. They tended to be lower income households. But now, by choice, a lot of the people that have moved into Kingston don't own cars. So, I don't know what that's done to the overall percentages if we were to go out and get a good count now. Maybe it stays about the same because maybe the new people are displacing the ones that didn't have cars before. I don't know. It's hard to say what the real numbers are.
So are we clear with our marching orders here? Start
I
to,
think
Should
so.
we divide up the papers that we have in the folder? And
Well,
sort of
before we
sign them,
even
or-
Before we even go there, we're in a smaller email thread, we had a discussion about maybe setting up another meeting on 4/26, where Christian could come and lead the meeting, explain what some of these documents were, and
Well, I won't be.
well, we can find a date.
yeah,
And if it has to, we meet monthly now, so it won't be long before May's here anyway. We can probably find a room on the regular agenda to talk about it.
yeah, I think we were gonna try to get an extra meeting in because of, Christian's availability.
Right.
Because we lost, we kind of lost a lot of our institutional knowledge by her not being here today in terms of what's in the documents, where's the best place to look for the various pieces of information.
May might be a full agenda, so Bob talked about his speed, education lecture.
Yeah.
He talked about doing a stakeholder exercise. Paul, I think you had stuff you wanted to put on the agenda. I sort of keep a little bit of a running cheat sheet of things we want to
Yeah,
put on.
a lot of things that have popped up that we either will deal with or schedule at the main meeting.
So let's try to schedule another meeting. We can do it remotely.
That's true.
26 doesn't work for you, but that's the one that Kristen threw out as an
Yeah,
option.
She had availability that day.
I can always try Zoom in, so.
Yeah,
We can try to
EJ's
find a
on,
date,
it's
though.
on Zoom.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could put a poll out.
Yeah.
Does the city use doodle polls? Or-
Doodles.
Yeah, that's right.
Doodle has changed the format. I don't know if you've used it recently.
They did?
Yeah, I tried to do a doodle poll. It was a disaster.
It's better than that option.
Yeah, I know. There's another program we found, a free one.
Yeah, well, maybe we could do that. Try to figure out when we can get together again. And I know not everybody on the council is interested in the task force, the sidewalk task force. So, you know, we don't necessarily have to accommodate the whole council for this.
Right.
So,
Actually, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, Google has a form that you can create that's really easy. I don't know, Emily, if you are familiar with that you can create in the sheets, in the Google Sheets. It's very easy to set up a form. So you could set up like a poll, but with the form, and people could just, you click on it and then you can review the results. It's very, very simple to use.
thank you for that. So how do I say this? We heard from Kristen the 26th is available. Can I suggest that we just set that time and date and whoever is available to come is able to? Honestly, I kind of don't want to even offer to manage a doodle poll at this time. Because honestly, I'll send it out, I'll make sure everyone replies by Friday. If not everyone will get back to me. It actually takes quite a bit of admin work.
Yeah.
So I would prefer that we just choose the 26th.
Yeah, Christian put that out there, it
Yeah.
was available, so we could take that approach too.
Yeah. And then we're gonna meet 2 weeks later.
Yeah, with a full agenda.
Yes. And so if, we'll record it, it'll be in, so if anyone's not able to join that day, they can see Kristen's contributions on YouTube. Is that, I'm sorry to be a little bit.
No, it's fine. We need people to delegate. Let's do it. Thank you.
Okay, so I will send out a meeting and also to also justify it, it looked like this room is available on the 26th, so that's another reason to sort of book it while it's available.
Okay.
So same time, 4 to
Yeah, it works for
5:30
me.
on the 26th. Great, I will send out a calendar invite.
Then we, since we've already had a little bit of discussion about this, maybe we can think about what the template should work, look like. Ideas will pop into our heads between now and then, we get on the table today.
Do you want to pull up the bike ped master plan? You said in the back there was,
You want to see that?
Something that- yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
See what I'm referring to?
Sign the, what's it called? The attestation as a board member. So I'm in good standing now down at the clerk's office.
I did that years ago. Told me I didn't have to do it again.
I did it once years ago too, but I guess my number came up.
I think somebody misfired down there. We didn't necessarily have to do it.
So I think you'll want to modify it.
yeah,
But it's more about this idea, like you probably want pros and cons and you probably want different other categories beyond description. But I love this idea of like user group feelings. So if you have a sidewalk district, realtors are not gonna like that. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it necessarily. And if you do a point of, or a point of sale, maybe it's point of sale, I'm just I'm
Yeah,
getting confused. Point of sale, realtors aren't gonna like it. For different versions of a sidewalk plan, I think you might wanna consider,
Interest groups.
yeah. You know,
Yeah, who are the stakeholders?
I just sort of like this idea of, a way to do sort of a pros and cons list. Because it's not just simply good and bad.
Mhm.
It sort of depends on who you're asking.
Yeah, and time frame is another element to consider. So, I mean, I don't think any method is gonna do anything faster than 30 years. Well, then again, I might be wrong.
It's the money ferry routes, big dollar.
Even then, I mean, then you still have a
Consider the bill.
to manage the big projects. It takes time. So,
I don't know what grants might be available either for just the sidewalk. component.
Transportation Alternatives Program is a grant.
What about ADA stuff?
There's no ADA grant program. But there's, under the bipartisan infrastructure law, I don't have all the programs written down. I do actually, it's in a different notebook. The Transportation Alternatives Program, the Safe Streets Program are two. The Transportation Council theoretically every 3 years receives an allocation directly for distribution to communities for transportation projects. That's through the Transportation Improvement Program. We have had, our allocation has been held flat for the past 12 years. There's been no money.
For the county or just for?
It's for the whole county. For any municipality, there's an application process and a scoring criteria. And then you can receive money. Some of the projects that have received money include Greenkill Avenue Bridge, the Abil Street Sidewalk Project. These are just Kingston projects through that allocation. Or you can apply through a competitive grant program like the Transportation Alternatives Program, which the city has been very successful at. There's also the New York State DEC Climate Smart Program, which is the Foxhole Flatbush funding source. So the sources are there. They're lumpy.
Oh, safe routes to school.
That's under TAP. That's under the Transportation Alternatives Program.
Okay.
It's a category. So the Henry Street project is sometimes referred to as the Safe Routes to School project, which it is, but that's funded through the Transportation Alternatives Program. Welcome to my world.
Yeah, here's some of those stuff, nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
so I can tell you that the city is amply aware of the opportunities that exist. We're hearing, you might hear about like raise grants or build. These are acronyms. I don't even know what they stand for because they're so new. So those are big, arduous programs to apply for. If basically you have to, if you want to be competitive, you need to hire a consultant. If you really want to take it seriously, which the city has done. And the city will probably do again in the future. But then you think these are neighborhood-wide projects. Not deal with just a street segment, we would deal with large areas and probably try to address multiple facets of the transportation system, not just sidewalks. So fortunately, we have a grants office here, which the city didn't always have that office. So they're acutely aware of the opportunities that exist as they come up. But it's the Transportation Alternatives Program only gets announced roughly every 3 years. So then the next announcement could come out this year. I don't know when it will.
Rich Swan's there first.
Well, he was the economic development director, but he wore that hat. He was writing grants. He got the Broadway grant.
Broadway.
And it through that experience, I think, then under Mayor Noble, created Christensen.
Yeah, because I remember Greg was writing. Grant.
Yeah, that's what his predecessor. All right, have we beat this one to death?
I would say so. With the lack of Christian's input, I'm kind of at a loss where to go. Because I don't know all those documents intimately. I'm familiar with them, but I can't tell you exactly which one to go look at and what page.
Can I do some announcements?
Sure.
Bike ped master plan and comments closed Friday. Henry, street
Could I ask,
construction.
have you been getting many comments? Did you get a good amount of input?
I don't know how you I mean, it's all relative. Yeah, I feel like we've gotten some really great comments.
People were interested, so a number of different individuals. Hear from anybody new that you hadn't heard from in the past?
Yeah, a few new names.
Great.
Yeah, and then a few regulars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we depend on, I think I can guess who the regulars are, and they have great comments. So
Yes.
that's fine.
And I've got a matrix for that, and then I'll just, also just FYI, I went through our public meeting and added everyone's sort of comments that happened during that meeting into my Excel spreadsheet. So they've gotten recorded as well. To be continued more on after the comments close. Henry Street, the city announced, it's not, construction is about to start. They announced that a notice to proceed has been issued for Henry Street. In case anybody's interested. So that's a construction project that's been in development for a long time. So, just want to announce that here. Then I have two requests of needs. I need volunteers for bike valet at the Earth Fair. And I need bike ped counters again in May. I have those dates on the agenda and I'll link to a sign up form. And I will probably send an email to the Complete Streets list so that people have that link.
I can do 17. I'll send it.
Fabulous. I put in here Albany Ulster. I hear it's was on the agenda, so it's public, but I don't know if there's anything new to say, except that there's a planning project in the works.
That's
not even
right.
started yet, right?
Sure, through what we call in our office, the Unified Planning Work Program, it's our budget. And it includes all the work that we do. City of Kingston applied to do a study, a corridor management plan for Albany, Ulster Avenue. And the request was for 90, and we approved it, and I increased the budget to, I think, 120. So it's amply funded. We're not going to start at any time. It won't be started this year. We are currently engaged with a consultant working in the town of Ulster on Route 9W, doing a corridor management plan. I want that project to get a little further along before I even start to think about this, because those two roadways intersect and they are heavily influenced by each other. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity to learn about the corridor, see how it functions. I'm not afraid to say it's a very ugly corridor. It's not a fun corridor to travel in by any mode. Whether you're driving, my mechanic is on that road right across from the bagel shop. I tried to cross that crosswalk. I really felt like I was saving my life in my hands. I was very clearly attempting to use the crosswalk. It's a crosswalk to nowhere. So we'll do a full inventory and evaluation of the roadway to really understand how it functions, what the crash history is, where the problem areas are, and try to promulgate some good recommendations. And the point of doing these plans is to get the recommendations which will lead to an implementation project, like a funding source, because once you have a plan that's been done by a qualified planning and engineering firm, it doesn't have to be formally adopted by the municipality, but if there's public outreach and buy-in and sort of consensus, or for lack of a better word, consent from the public, it's really gonna put the municipality way ahead for a successful grant application. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of alternatives can be considered out there to make it safer, make it more pleasing to travel in.
How far, like, you think it's a long stretch, how far?
The entire stretch essentially from the roundabout. If you think about it from signals to signal.
Mhm.
So it's from essentially the roundabout to all the way to the intersection with 9W. So there's the CSX overpass, and once you come down there is where it will land. And so we'll model the corridor with a full transportation model. We'll get all the signal timings for the corridor. Whereas 9W is a traditional corridor management plan with a strong emphasis on congestion. It's not the only emphasis, but it is a strong one because of the nature of that area. It's a very commercial area. I think this study will have a different emphasis. I think the emphasis will probably be more aesthetics and bike ped safety. But it remains to be seen. There's a process, we'll scope it out, we'll work with the city. There'll be a technical advisory committee as well.
And a consultant.
Yeah, we hire consultants for this level of work. Yeah, it's beyond our expertise in the
Yeah.
office, to do the modeling and engineering evaluation. And the other thing I will say is this roadway is getting long in the tooth. It's ripe for some improvements. The DOT did upgrade the signals for better or worse, but the condition of pavement itself and sidewalks is, I think it's in need of some attention. So it might be a good time. Might be a good time.
Cool, thank you for that. Yeah, that was identified in the bike ped master plan. So I'm excited to see already considering parts that have been recommended.
Yeah, we're excited too, and this is also, we should note, is a collaborative approach between the town of Ulster and the city. And that speaks a lot to the process.
Didn't mean to have you do a whole update.
It's
So
fine,
thank you on that.
that's what I'm here for.
That's all I've got. Yeah, this is not complete streets, but, well, you know, actually it is. I'm gonna, I should put this on there. Tuesday is a public meeting for Tuesday is a public meeting for the Broadway and Prince green spaces right down here. We will be presenting a final draft landscape design. And it is complete streets because it is funded by Creating Healthy Schools and Communities grant funding, which was to create destinations, improvements for, and to encourage walking and biking. So there will definitely be some, it doesn't include like bike lanes and those kinds of things, but it definitely will have destinations, it'll create a destination for users. So please come check it out.
I saw the renderings,
Yeah,
they look great.
yeah, it's
I
exciting.
think it's good soft skate materials that I think,
My big issue with the renderings was too many people were just sitting there looking at their phones.
hey, look around, that's what you see, it's crazy. It's crazy.
John, that's really funny. That's actually good. I'll take that as a good compliment that that's what you picked out as.
Yeah.
That's just this problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us. We didn't call this one meeting to order, but you want to say we're adjourned?
Yeah, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Hi.
I guess we're adjourned. Thank you.
Wait, Elizabeth, did you want to say something?
No, I just said hi, and I just wanted to apologize for missing the last 2 meetings. I had a medical emergency that evolved into a couple months of dealing with it, so sorry.
Sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully you'll be with us for the rest of the meeting.
I hope, and I'm hoping to get there live at some point. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.